Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1593, and today's date is June 15th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Party is Over, It Has Already Begun. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we know that the United States has a subprime problem, and this was a subprime problem that we saw back in 2008, never gone away. It has continued up until today. It is in the automobile industry. It's still in the housing market. And in Canada has a subprime real estate problem, but many people don't know about this. Why? Because in Canada, they call it something different. And another reason why people don't realize that they have a subprime problem is because the way it is handled. Now, let's go through this a little bit here. Now, there are differences between subprime borrowers and subprime loans. Subprime loans are any loans that are below prime, as in the typical lending criteria isn't met. The part that's poorly understood is a borrower. A loan or any combination of those can be subprime. A borrower with excellent credit might want a subprime loan. This happens more often than you think, and is usually because a bank won't lend as much money as needed because they don't want to take the risk, even though you have good credit. And basically, what happens is you need to go to the subprime area. Now, when we look at this, a borrower with excellent credit might want a subprime loan. This happens more than you think. And no one thinks of a family in a nice neighborhood with a private loan to buy their fourth or fifth condo as subprime, but they are. Most people knew subprime lenders blew up and naturally blame poor people, immigrants with low credit scores. The corporate media put this out there. Everyone believed it. But there's new research, and the new research shows that a sudden rise in foreclosures during this period were due almost exclusively to investors with good credit, but using subprime lenders. Canadian subprime lending is often done through private lenders. You access through a mortgage broker. Good brokers always start at the best lender that usually has lower rates than your bank. When you don't qualify for these, they move up the chain. If your credit profile won't even work at bad credit, lenders like Home Trust, they'll suggest a private lender. Bad credit, no problem. There's usually a private lender that's willing to make a deal. Sounds great. So why doesn't everyone use private lenders? They aren't taking bank rejects as a charitable cause. They're doing so because they can charge a risk premium. Despite being off record low interest rates, these lenders charge upwards of 8%, and we've seen mortgages well into the 20s. And out in Canada, TransUnion estimates that 11.9% of the 28.4 million Canadian consumers with credit profiles are subprime. That's roughly 3.4 million Canadians. But we can't be sure these are the borrowers. What we do know is private lenders became extremely popular in Canada. And again, if you can't purchase that house, they move up the chain and they go to those subprime lenders. They become riskier and you get the loan, even though you have good credit. That was what was happening in the U.S. This is what's happening in Canada. And when everything starts to go south, guess what happens? People start to realize what was happening here. And we know that Canada is in this gigantic housing bubble and it's deflating. Prices are coming down, and the situation is going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Here in the U.S., we see U.S. auto production. It has crashed the most in 5 years. U.S. manufacturing production slumped by 0.7% month on month in May. This is the biggest drop since July 2016, dragging industrial production down by 0.1%. And we can see right now that things are starting to go the opposite way. And again, what will happen is they'll revise the statistics. They'll make it look better later on to make everyone believe that everything is great. This is what the government likes to do. And they're doing it for a reason now because they're pushing the idea that the economy's great while overheating the entire system to collapse. because we are in a central banking system. This system can't go on. Trump, the Patriots, they know this, and they're pushing it to the edge. And how are they doing this? Well, with tariffs, with reciprocal taxes, with tax cuts, you name it, anything that they can use to bring the system down, this is what they're doing. At the same time, telling everyone how great the economy is doing, that all this stuff is working. This is part of the plan. They're using the same exact strategy as the central bankers, the establishment, the deep state did in the past. Think North Korea. During the peace process that was happening behind the scenes, what was the message? Our nuclear arsenal is bigger than yours. Our button's bigger than yours. He let McMaster's put out the reports that we're going to be going to war. This is the troop loss. This is exactly what the corporate media was feeding on. But behind the scenes, something else was going on. That is what is happening right now. What you see out in front of you is the central bank deep state illusion, and they're just keeping it going. What's happening behind the scenes? Well, they're preparing the entire system for the transition. That is what is happening right now, and we can see that the party is over. And when we look at the central banks and we look at QE, we can see that QE basically has stopped. And the central banks, they are raising rates right now. The Fed has raised the rates. And when you look at this, you can see the effects of QE being tapered and basically stopped. Now, when you look at this, you can see that the central bank, on a monthly basis, QE volumes have dropped quite a bit. And when you continually look at this on a year-on-year basis, you can see that it is basically almost done with. And this is happening not just here in the US, but out in Europe also. And while this is happening, you can see the effects because they're raising rates at the same time. And you see the housing market, it is shaking. You can see that the housing bubbles in Canada and in Europe and Australia, they're deflating right now. We see credit markets and banks in Europe, they're starting to shake, and we're getting all these problems that are popping up now. And this is all because QE is being removed from the system. So if you had a drug addict and you stop giving drugs to this individual, guess what happens? Withdrawal symptoms. And it goes on for quite a while. The whole body has to reboot, has to reset. That's what's happening right now. And we're seeing certain areas, well, they're starting to go through the withdrawal symptoms. And this will continue. Now, the Fed has raised the rates once again, and we can see QE is coming to a halt, and they're trying to unwind. This entire system is being primed to collapse. Now, again, this is the central bank where they want to gain the narrative. And of course, they're going to say they've done nothing wrong. If you go back in time, what have they used in the past to tell you that it was somebody else? Look at 2008, for instance. We didn't do anything wrong. It was the subprime securities. We didn't do anything wrong, but they set it up where they were able to create currency and push the government into allowing them to do this. They're very tricky and very smart in how they do all these things. And they set it up to make it seem like they had nothing to do with it. We're just innocent behind the scenes here, trying to manage the economy while the government and Wall Street and everyone else messes it up. And this is the illusion they create during these scenarios. And this is what the battle is all about, to control and gain the narrative. And we can see right now that this is going to be quite tough because you can see both sides are pushing the economy to the edge. Trump and Patriots are doing it one way. The central bank is doing it another way. The central bank is doing it the way they always do it. And we can see that both of them are going to clash. Who's going to come out on top? Well, we'll have to wait and see. And remember, the central bank right now, most of the time they're behind the scenes. Yes, they have the corporate media behind them. The corporate media roots for the central bank because it's part of the whole system. But Trump has a loud mouth. He tweets a lot. And we'll have to see if he's able, with the Patriots behind the scenes, to gain the narrative and control where we go once the system starts collapsing. Because if Trump can control what is going on here with the Patriots and blame it on the central bank, he'll have the upper hand. If the central bank, with the corporate media, if they can put their message out and say it was Trump's policies, it was tariffs, it was everything else that he did, well, there's going to be a problem. So we're in this gigantic battle right now. The party's over. The economy right now is breaking apart, is going through withdrawal symptoms, and it's just going to get worse as time goes on. Forget about the statistical numbers. They're all fake, phony, and false. They have been for a very long time. Unemployment, GDP numbers, you name it, completely made up, manipulated, revised to make the economy look good. This is part of the illusion. Go back to 2008. Everyone thought the economy was fantastic. If you told anyone that the subprime securities weren't AAA, they laugh at you. They say that is ridiculous. I know they're AAA because they told me they were AAA. Except those few individuals that actually looked at the subprime securities and said, wait a minute. More than half of these people are defaulting on their loans. How can these be AAA? This makes no sense whatsoever. And this is what we're doing right now. We're looking through all the garbage statistics, the ratings and everything else. We're looking at data that shows that this system is not going to survive much longer. So be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.